Hey guys, Tina here, the Critical Virgo. So the other day I did a little teaser video on my Instagram asking everybody if they were interested in a marathon series. I'm currently training for my first full marathon and the response was really positive, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Before I start going into stuff like that, I really wanted to do like an intro video. I did the same thing for fragrance. I think it's really important to know where your reviewers are coming from because what we've been through really does have an impact on how we approach new products. So if story times are not really your thing, check back in, not this Monday, it is Sunday at this current day that I'm posting this, but the following Monday. I'm going to do my marathon updates and reviews on Mondays for Marathon Mondays or Motivational Mondays. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to call it, but it'll be something along those lines. Maybe you guys can give me some help in naming that and putting that in the comments down below. But like I said, subscribe and come back the following Monday. This post will take place of this coming Monday. I'm not going to do another post on Monday even though it's a Sunday. So just a little background. Fitness was not always my thing. I was born and raised in New York, which is a great commuter town, so I never really had an issue with my weight. I was walking everywhere. I'd walk, 3 miles a day plus, so I could eat whatever I want. Also, I was younger, so again, I never had a weight problem. I moved to Florida in 2007, and Florida, if you're not familiar with it, is not the most ideal place to walk around. It's very hot, the sidewalks suck, so I found myself driving everywhere and the weight started to creep on slowly. I really noticed the weight come on around 2010 to 11 because that was my final years in school. I was going to school full-time and working full-time, so literally I'd go from work from 8 till 5 and then from school until 6 until 10. My weekends were spent doing homework, and at the time I really wanted to go to law school, so I was studying for the LSAT, and that took up the last little bit of free time that I would have had to work out. So when I moved to Florida I was like 150 pounds, and when I graduated from school I was 194 pounds and very out of shape. I have a heart condition, a mitral valve prolapse that causes a heart murmur, and just the lack of care that I was taking to my body really started to show up. I was also a long time smoker. I smoked from the age of 13 to 24 daily. I'm talking about almost a pack a day, and then from 24 till 27 I was a social smoker. I'd smoke when I was drinking. So my heart murmur really started to act up. It started to get a little painful, and I knew I needed to make some changes in my life, but I don't know, I just couldn't get it together. And I had a real wake-up call one day in 2011 when I was walking to the Chinese food restaurant, which was a quarter mile away from my job, and I was 27 years old, mind you, in 2011, and my calves were sore the next day. Like, I was so disappointed in myself, being someone who used to be, pretty fit, and I used to be able to walk miles without feeling anything. Here I am walking not even a quarter mile and I was in pain. Like that, I just was very disappointed in myself. So in 2011, I was working for this company that took part in something called a corporate run. It was hosted by one of the major automobile dealers in South Florida, and corporations from all across South Florida would pay your entry and you could do a 5K race with your coworkers. It was a great bonding activity. Now I hadn't trained for this, and I knew that going into it I wouldn't be able to like jog it or run or whatever. I just wanted to finish it. So I started off with everybody and I was like jogging, and quickly realized, yeah, no, you're not going anywhere. So I walked the whole thing. It took me almost an hour to finish, but I did it. And again, I hadn't trained for it, so I was sore, like so sore. The delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, was a real thing for the next few days. And I had a little bit of a wake-up call. I made some changes to my eating and I dropped about 20 pounds, and for the next 2 years I have it around 175, 180 pretty easily with just some light working out. But again, I wasn't really training for anything major. In early 2013, I saw one of my girlfriends, her name's Adriana. She made a lot of changes in her life and she started training for like 5Ks, etc. And she just seemed so happy, and I was like, you know what, I want to feel that way too. So we started like talking, and she told me about this application called C25K, and I told her that I wanted to sign up for a race. So we signed up for this thing called the Color Run. They're really fun. If you've never done a race before, I highly recommend making like a color run or a neon vibe run or something along those lines, where they have like crazy paints and like DJs, loud music, just positivity going everywhere. As one of your first races, you won't regret it. It's just a ton of fun. So I downloaded this app, and in 2013, that's when I decided to just drop the cigarettes, because I mean, it was hard to train, and like, it was leading up to my 30th birthday. So that's the other thing that really had an impact on my decision to start making some changes, because when you're about to turn 30, you know, you start reevaluating your life and everything. So I decided, now I want to make some changes. I want to turn this around and really get control over my life. So I quit smoking entirely, no more social smoking, and I started running. I sucked at it. My first 5K, my time was horrible. I jogged and walked the majority of it, but I had a blast. And not too long after that, I enrolled in something called the Neon Vibe Run with another friend of mine. Her name's Aaliyah. So now I had Aaliyah and Adriana, and we were all training together, and we did the race together. And like, I was so jealous, because like Adriana was so more advanced than I was, because she had been training for longer. So she was able to like jog this whole thing, and that like kind of put a goal in my mind, because at the Neon Vibe Run, I still was not able to complete a full run, like the full 3 miles, the 5K, without stopping. But I tried my best, and I made it a point to really train to run 3 miles without stopping. Now, while training for the Neon Vibe Run, I started to feel really strong, and I said to my friend Adriana, who was already able to run 3 miles straight, let's do a half marathon. A co-worker of ours who organized all the corporate runs and was known as a runner in the office suggested that we do a relay, because she didn't think that we should just go in and do a half marathon as our first race just out. But I'm one of those go big or go home people, and I was like, F that, like, let's just do it. So we both picked a half marathon and started to train for it. Now, while training for a half marathon, mind you, I'm still not able to run 3 miles straight. I started to feel really strong. I started to get cocky. I was watching YouTube one day, and I found this documentary on Dick and Rick Hoyt. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but if you're not, you should do like a search on them. It's very inspirational. Pretty much a father and his disabled son, they compete in Ironman races, and it's very touching. If you don't cry watching this, then you have no soul. Okay, I felt so inspired, and I was just overcome with this feeling of I want to do an Ironman race. Well, not a full Ironman, but at least a half Ironman. So I started talking to my girlfriend about Ironman races, and she thought I was like crazy, but she's crazy too. So she actually said she would do it. She still to this day has not done one, so I'm calling you out on it. But I started talking about getting a bike and training, and I had like this really cheap mountain bike that I started riding, but I wanted to get a road bike. So we found a bike show, and I dropped a ton of cash on a Cannondale. The Synapse 6, and I still love it. I have it still, and it has like all these extra accessories on it. I'll post a photo right here. So now that I had all my goals in mind, and I had some sort of plan in place, like I started to train with so much focus, and things were just going so smoothly, and I felt amazing. I was losing weight like crazy, because I mean, honestly, between swimming, biking, running, I was sometimes burning up to 2,000 calories a day. It was kind of crazy. And I had signed up for another race with my friend Aaliyah. It's called the King of the Hill. In Florida, there are no hills, with the exception of this one man-made one that's on a freaking old dump. It's a huge hill. So my goal was to, like I said, do a 5K without stopping, and this one just so happened to have a huge hill. My time sucked, but I did it. I ran the whole thing without stopping, and I felt so energized. Now, that race, the King of the Hill, that was in, let me think. I gotta look at it. It was in September. We all had registered for our first half marathon in that was supposed to take place in November. So between September and November, you know, I really focused on just getting my half marathon race pace, etc. down packed. So I just didn't want to stop throughout the race. I wanted to go through the whole thing. I had some issues with blistering, etc. But I ended up finishing in 2 hours and like 40 minutes. It was my first half marathon. The time sucked, but it was a good benchmark for future races. And honestly, like, running just became like a full-blown addiction. I got addicted to the runner's high. I felt so good about myself before going out, but honestly, sometimes getting motivated to go out was like difficult, as it is with a lot of people. I had a trip planned to New York in December, and my cousin was getting into running too. She joined a runner's club, so we thought it'd be fun to do something called a hot cocoa run. It was a 5K, and you know, now training for the half marathon, my endurance was getting better. I was working on my speed. I finally broke the 30-minute mark at this race for my 5K time, and I was so happy. Training, you know, obviously I was training for a half Ironman, so I had swimming, biking, and running involved. My friend Adriana and I in January of 2014 decided to participate in a charity ride, and there were like 3 distances involved, and she was gonna do the middle distance, which I think was like 30 miles, but I talked her into doing the 65-mile ride with me, and I'm so glad she did because it was so painful, and I really needed the motivation, the company, etc. And she was my rock that day, and I'll forever love her for that. In February, we had another half marathon, and I PR'd at this one. I had finished it in 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I felt like I was on top of the world. I made so much progress between November and February. It was crazy. Again, my November time was like 2 hours and 40, and then I dropped it down to 2:15. So I trained really hard, and like I said, all my training up to this point was leading up to a half Ironman, which I had scheduled for October 26, 2014. This day is forever burned into my memory because it was one of the worst days of my life. So just to recap, I started really training for the Ironman at the beginning of 2014. I originally wanted to do a different race for my first half Ironman, but it sold out, so I ended up choosing the Miami half Ironman race. And I felt strong. I felt really strong going into it. I felt very confident, perhaps a little too cocky. I invited like all my friends, family down to Miami, and I made this big deal about it, and I got disqualified. I got pulled out of the water, and yeah, I was broken. I was mortified. I was so upset with myself. I was embarrassed. I don't know, I just shut down emotionally, like, because I trained so hard for it for over a year, and I just failed, and it still gets to me this day. So I completely shut down for like a good week. I gave myself a good week to just feel that emotion, and it's so silly, I'm like getting still like choked up about it now, but it was such a real feeling. Like, unless if you felt that kind of disappointment, you'll just never know. So I gave myself a good week to just feel sorry for myself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm better now. So I gave myself a week to just, you know, sulk and feel sorry for myself. And then I started to get mad. Like, this fire was just ignited deep in my soul. It's like, Tina, you didn't spend a year of your life training for something to just give up and fail like that. So I went online in search of, you know, a half Ironman or half Iron distance race. Didn't have to be an Ironman branded race, just to like have a, you know, to complete this journey, to have an end to this. And I found one that was happening pretty close. It was in November, and it was hosted by Multi-Race. It was the Miami Man, which is through a zoo. It was really cool. And I just, you know, I'm like a glutton for punishment. It was like literally 2 weeks later. So I went into this race, and it was like the toughest race I've ever done because it rained from beginning until end. Like, it is so uncomfortable being in wet clothes for almost 6 hours, especially running a half marathon in wet shoes. Like, it's just very uncomfortable. But I pushed through it, and I ended up placing second in my age group, so I rocked it out. And after the race, you know, I was so proud of myself, and you know, it was like I reached this peak, and once you kind of accomplish something, it's almost like, okay, so what do I do next? Well, unfortunately, you know, training for a half Ironman is very time consuming. Training for an Ironman is even more time consuming, and it can be very difficult on personal relationships. It was very difficult in my personal relationship. It put a lot of strain on it. And, you know, during the whole training process, the person I was with and the person I'm still with voiced his concerns, and I told him, listen, this is just something I have to do for myself, and, you know, let me just get it out of my system, and I won't do it again. So I haven't signed up for another half Ironman. In fact, I haven't signed up for another race since then, just because, like, I've lost that motivation. I've lost that drive. And I just want to say something too. Like, in that whole year where I was telling you about my races, there were a few other half marathons and stuff that I haven't brought up just because they weren't anything, you know, monumental in my life. But after my half Ironman, I stopped training, really. Not that I completely stopped training. I still, you know, went to the gym. I lifted weights. I worked on getting my personal training certificate and my health coach certificate. I started a business, but I stopped taking on clients because I started putting on weight. I was training, but I didn't have anything to really train for, so I didn't have that intensity. And I just started to feel like a hypocrite. Like, who am I to tell people how to live a healthy lifestyle when I'm not living it myself, you know? And, you know, there have been a few moves in between, and now I'm in Ohio. I'm no longer in Florida. I'm not in New York. I'm in Ohio now. And it's 2017. And new start. I'll put a clip in from yesterday. I weighed myself in before my long run, which was a 5.5 mile run right here. Alright, so I'm glad I got that over with. Just a quick check-in. So, let's see if I can get a good screenshot. I did 5.5 miles, 54 minutes. I don't know if it'll... But, posted it up on my Instagram so you guys could see. And, yeah, this is... Let me see. Had a good sweat, had a good workout, so... Happy with that. It's a lot harder than I remember it being. It's tougher to run when you're almost 183 pounds versus 146. So I can't wait to drop some of this weight. It'll definitely help. Heart rate's still up, so I'm gonna let that continue tracking my heart rate until it's down to like 120, 115. Close to 183 pounds. And you know, I was supposed to start in January, but I kind of announced it, but I didn't really stick to it. So now that I have a race coming up in 33 weeks, I really have to buckle down. My ideal race weight is about 146 pounds, 150 pounds. Definitely 150 at the least. So yeah, it's time to get serious, and I want to bring you guys along with me. So I hope you enjoyed this story time. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below. Don't forget to check out my website, www.thecriticalvirgo.com. I'm going to put a link to my intro post so you can see photos of my journey, my weight loss before and after. I'm not going to post a picture up or a video up right now at my current weight because I'm pretty much where I started from before, and I just don't feel comfortable. I hope you understand, but I am documenting it, and I will do a video you know, showing photos, etc. throughout my journey, which will probably come either in October or whenever I feel more comfortable with my body, whatever happens first. So stay tuned to that. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and don't forget, Marathon Mondays every Monday. So till next Monday, guys. Bye.